The greatness of Brian Thomas Jr. will be on full display for everyone to see, but I hope the Jaguars get him some more help. I'll tell you what I mean in just a second on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right. It's your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the said podcast that is Locked On Jaguars, that you can find wherever you get podcasts, whether you watch them or listen to them. Make sure wherever that location is, you tap in each and every day so you do not miss an episode. I want to shout out to everydayers real quick for joining us here. And if you're not one, you can be. All you got to do is just come back. I hope I give you some reason to come back, and hopefully you can enjoy the show. All right, here's what we're going to discuss today. Quality over quantity. Do you want the Jaguars to have a whole bunch of decent signings in free agency, or do you want them to have one great one, maybe, and another almost great one? So you get 6 pretty good players, or you want to get 2 great ones? That's the question I want to ask. The need for greed is real, and they should take that title and name it take that and make it a name of a new show that's going to come on, a series, because that sounds really, really good. But I think there's a need for the Jaguars to actually be greedy in this situation. I'll discuss what that actually means and how you go about that. But first, the greatness of Brian Thomas Jr. will be televised. And what I mean by that is, of course, it'll be televised. All NFL games are televised with. No, I just mean you're going to we know how good he is here. And I think people around the league are starting to serve notice about how good Brian Thomas Jr. is. But now you're going to see where you're going to watch them see it. And we haven't seen that a lot. I know I'm saying see a whole bunch, but we haven't seen that a lot around here. The last time something like this happened was probably with Jalen Ramsey and Calais Campbell in 2017, when the whole world realized just how good those players were. Prior to that, it goes back to Fred and Jimmy and Maurice Jones-Drew and guys like that, and they aren't given the credit that they are usually given. But now there's no more small market excuses, okay? There's no what I call excuses about, we don't see, because the way social media is now and the way everything is televised all over the place, oh, no, man, there's no reason or no excuse to think that somebody who is outstanding won't be recognized for it. And now you're just going to see people really, really do that up front with Brian Thomas Jr. But I don't want us to get caught up too much in just that aspect of it. I want us to understand that in order for the Jaguars to get to another level, they're going to need 6, 7, or 8 players that people around the league think are really, really good. And the people acknowledging that isn't what's going to make them good. What's going to make people acknowledge that is the fact that they're good. You got it? So that's what I mean. This ain't about respectability and me thinking that something that somebody else says about this team is going to matter for them in the win column, but it won't. But what they do on the field affects the win column. And when the win column starts showing up the way that we hope it will, then that means that they'll have to start talking a little bit differently about this team. So we're going to keep the main thing the main thing. There's a need for the Jacksonville Jaguars to have that one recognizable great player that people aren't always scrutinizing. So there has been a lot of focus on Trevor Lawrence, right? But the focus on Trevor Lawrence has always been, with the exception of the playoff run in 2022, the focus on Trevor Lawrence has always been about what he isn't. It's about what he isn't because everybody prematurely said he was. And then there were other folks saying, well, hold your horses. And then there were people saying, okay, now we're pointing the finger saying, I told you so. So what we need to do is, first of all, Trevor's going to get elevated if things go the way I think. Brian Thomas Jr. is already in the minds of a lot of people around the league. There's some people that believe he's the best player on the Jaguars team, and I don't think there's a whole bunch of people that will disagree with that. The new coaching staff, a new approach, a new GM, new energy in the building, all of those things will work together, I believe, and the Jaguars will be way better. they will be a tremendously improved football team. I think schematically, I think, like I said, with the energy level, I think using the resources, using the people that they have, this roster isn't devoid of talent. Shout out to Trent Baalke. It's just not. It's not, the cupboard isn't bare, but they are picking fifth for a reason, and that is a whole bunch of people were involved in that, whether it's coaches or the GM, and a combination of all of it. But now everybody's moving in a different direction. What I want the Jaguars to do, whether it be in free agency or the draft, I want them to go out and get other people that are just as good as Brian Thomas Jr. And I know that's very, very easy to say, right? But I think you have to really shoot for the stars. And I don't mean trade the house for Myles Garrett. That's not what I mean. There are some people that say they probably should think about doing that. And he's just a different guy. And I don't blame people for thinking that. But when you look around at these good teams, Devontae Smith was drafted by Philadelphia. I think it was like the 13th, 14th pick, right? He's lived up to every single expectation. They still went and got A.J. Brown. They still went and added Saquon Barkley. You see what I mean? You don't rest on your laurels. Don't think that you have to be. It's not a basketball team where you got to be led by one or maybe two guys. That's not it. You can get a whole bunch of great players. Look at the Chiefs. Chris Jones. They had Tyreek Hill. They had Chris Jones. They had Patrick Mahomes. They had Jason Kelsey. There are a lot of players on that team that are really, really good, right? And playing at a high level. That's what the Jaguars have to do. I think they have to start stacking. I think they have a chance to do that this year, not only in free agency, but with the 5th overall pick in the draft. If they get the right person in the draft and the right person in free agency, normally in these situations when the Jaguars pick somebody like that, all the pressure is on them right away to come in and be a savior, or we got to see what he's going to do, right? I think this year, with the addition of the staff that they have, with the expectation that Trevor Lawrence is going to take another step, with the fact that Trayvon Walker has arrived, with the fact that Josh Hines-Allen is still a very good player, with the fact that Brian Thomas Jr. looks like a star, I don't think the 5th pick overall in this draft will be viewed as the savior for the franchise. No, I think they got plenty enough people to do that. But he does need to be, whoever it is, a guy who plays like a 5th overall pick in the draft. And if he does that, and then if they add somebody in free agency, it's going to really, really look good and really, really look scary. So somebody asked me, they say, Wig, why did you say you want this to be a 2-receiver team? Shouldn't you want more players? Shouldn't you want a whole bunch of players at different positions? We'll discuss quantity and quantity in segment 3, but I'll tell you why there should be a need for greed, and I don't think you should be ashamed of it if you're a Jaguar fan, and I'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you in part by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get it on than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets through the game, so even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love FanDuel, man. I love playing it, and you guys will enjoy it. Also, make sure you tap in to FanDuel, and I'll show you how to do that right now. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your one shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so there's this talk that there are some people that take the approach with the Jacksonville Jaguars this year that they need complementary pieces. They do. They do. It doesn't mean that they need to go and try to get complementary pieces. What do I mean by that? What I mean by I'm not going to look for complementary pieces. I'm not going to look for glue guys. I'm going to look for guys who are the best possible players that I can get within reason. And within reason means financially. Within reason means who you trade for, who you don't. So within reason does have a place in this conversation. But what I'm saying is get the absolute best player you can get. When you bring them in, mix them in with everybody else, and then I want the cream to rise to the top. Maybe the dude that you think is a great player right now with Jacksonville, maybe he needs to be the second best guy in his position group. Maybe the people that you think are the leaders of the team, maybe they can be a part of the leadership council. But see, sometimes when you raise things up, you raise it up from the top. A lot of people always like to say raising the floor. Well, you know what? Sometimes to get things up, you put helium balloons, you put balloons up, and you blow those balloons and it lifts it from the top. And there's more than one way to build your team. I want to build a team with greed. And what I mean by greed is there's general managers, I think it was Danny Ainge that told Chris Perkins the other day, Big Perk on ESPN, said that Danny Ainge told him every time he went out to go scouting, Perk, I'm going to find somebody that's better than you. And I think the Jaguars have to have that approach. Now, when you committed money to your quarterback, you're not going to do that. When you committed money to other great players, you're not necessarily going to do that. And that's why I mentioned Myles Garrett earlier. You're not necessarily going to replace people unless it's just a no-brainer. If it's a no-brainer type, all-world generational talent, then you might think about it. But I don't want y'all to create a blind spot for yourself by thinking, okay, well, we got this guy and this guy. We just need a little guy to, like when people talk about the receivers, they say, well, we just need a guy to complement Brian. Brian's fine. Why? You know what you should do? You should try to get another Brian. Let them figure it out. Let whoever gets open throwing the ball, let them figure it out. Don't sit here and just say, well, this is the guy we committed to for number one, and we were 4-13. So we just need a dude to come. See, this is the point, and this is the reason for a complete change. A complete change means a change not only in how we're doing things, but the reason that we're doing them, but it also means a change in mentality. And what I mean by a change in mentality is we need to create competition. I like Brian Thomas Jr. You just heard me talk about how great Brian Thomas Jr. is, right? And I'm going to mention him a lot because I think he's the alpha of the team. The thing about that, though, is this. If he's as good as I think he is, he'll survive if I go out and get another guy just like him. You see, the number one free agent out there is T. Higgins. Everybody loves T. Higgins, right? But the Bengals decided, you know what, we got T. Higgins, but you know we're going to go get Jamar Chase too. You see that? And that's what I mean. When you see teams that understand that you're not always having to go out and find those glue guys or those dudes that just come in and do their job all the time and may not be the most talented people in the world. And folks think that that's what we mean by lifting this franchise up. Well, this franchise needs a lot of lifting up. I'm not trying to be real humble right now when it comes to what they got going on, man. I'm trying to say, go out and get another superstar. Draft another guy. And I think this new staff isn't going to be beholden to not do that. I know it's real easy to sit here and just talk about the offensive line and the trenches. And I know it's not sexy because I do it every day and I hear people talk. But that doesn't mean that you're not still trying to go out and find guys that'll be all pros. That's how you do it. You go find guys that'll be all pro. So don't go looking for just average guys who you can plug in, or don't think that that's what they're going to do. I'm not talking to the team itself. I'm talking to the fans. Don't think that all they need is just a little bit of something to supplement this. No, the Jaguars need great players. I want them stacked across the roster. I want them so great that you can't tell they're all great. I want them so great that the 10th best guy on this team, you go, yeah, he's all right. Yeah, but you know he's not. He's way better than that. Go through the Eagles roster, and when you get to their 10th best player, let me know how you feel about it. Oh, by the way, thank you. I'll do it for you right now. Jalen Hurts is the MVP. He's their quarterback. Whether you want to argue about him being great or not, that's on you. He's a top 10 player, right, at his position. He was before the Super Bowl, and now his ranking on a lot of people's minds has gone up. So he's a great player. You know the running back's a great player, right? You know both those receivers are great players, right? You know the tight end is a damn good player. He's a top 5 tight end in this league. You know the center's pretty good. You know, their left guard is really, really good, right? You know, their right tackle is probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. And by the way, their left tackle is pretty decent too. And then you go over to the defense, and they might have the second or third, or maybe even the first, if you, depending on who you talk to, maybe a top 3 defensive tackle in the league, and he's a young player. You know, the Josh Sweat guy's pretty good too, right? He's going to make a bunch of money in free agency this year. Jordan Davis is a damn good nose tackle, isn't he? Zach Bond, first team All-Pro at linebacker. And we didn't even mention the Kobe Dean, who was injured. What about those 2 rookies playing in the secondary? What about C.J. Gardner-Johnson, right? What about Darius Slay on the other side, the veteran? You see what I just did? I just basically went through there all 22, and you can't name one player in that 22 that you don't think is good. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Not, well, maybe this guy can do his job. Oh, no, maybe that guy, you know, he's all right. No, I don't want that. I don't want any more. I don't want any more. All right. I don't want any more. Well, he's just fine. No, we need 11 guys that can all play, and everybody. Then the hard part about it is making everybody come together and be one and communicate. I don't want to have to hide any players. Now I'm being greedy. Remember when we got Trevor Lawrence back in the day and I said we need to be greedy? We need to be greedy. And there were people that saying, no, just give Trevor the ball and get out of the way and all of this stuff and just let him sling it around. And it kind of didn't work out, did it? We have a new chance and a new shot at not only turning this thing around to the point where it's consistently respectable. They have an actual chance to get this thing to the point where it is one of the best franchises in the entire National Football League on a consistent basis. So, yeah, that's why I want to be greedy. And the question remains, do we go quantity or quality? Well, it depends. And there's one factor that I keep bringing up, and I'll bring it up here in segment 3 in just a second when we talk about that. But there's this one thing that I keep bringing up over and over again. It's who those players are. That is going to establish what your culture is. Your culture will not be established by whether or not you just win or lose. It'll be the personality of those players, who they are, and what characteristics the coaches look for when they're talking about building the team. And we'll talk about that more here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by PrizePicks. Football season may be over, but basketball is in full swing, and there's no better way to stay in the game than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. This week, I'm looking for Jason Tatum to get more than 29 points. The best parts, PrizePicks is quick and easy, and you can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, so as we ponder through talking about greed and the need for greed for the Jacksonville Jaguars, quality over quantity. It's a good question. Where do the Jaguars need the most help? I believe is on the offensive line. I think they need another playmaker at wide receiver. But the problem is they've paid some people. It looks like Christian Kirk is going to be here because there are people in the building that love Christian Kirk. Maybe they work something out with him. It also looks like Gabe Davis is going to be here because, well, they can't get rid of him. If they do, they're going to be paying him. The salary cap is crazy. They're going to be, sitting there on the hook for a lot of money that they already gave him, and then with his cap figure, it's going to, be pretty detrimental. And maybe they have a plan for him. We talked about that yesterday. Do they think with the scheme change, can he be a little bit more like a good number 2 was in Tampa? The one thing I will tell you about Liam Cohen's offense is they didn't really have a burner at wide receiver. They got a burner now here in Jacksonville. When he was with the Rams, they didn't really have a burner. They had Tutu Atwell, but Tutu Atwell wasn't catching no balls back in the day. And they were still very, very good with Cooper Kupp. And then even this year with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, it was more execution and play design and guys being really, really good route runners. This is why I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a plus, because he does all of that. He's Cooper Kupp with nitrous. Okay. He's a guy who runs routes very well. He hand catches. He's a competitor. He has this quiet, unassuming thing. Normally, when you get a guy that good, sometimes they're a little bit of a diva, maybe like Malik Neighbors, his college teammate. But we got the best of it because this guy's a great player and he's a quiet, unassuming great player. Doesn't mean he's not a great leader, but what it does mean is he gives you all of the intangibles that those overachievers gives you. Plus, he has the super achiever ability. You know what I mean? And so now I can only imagine that they're going to have a field day with a guy like that. You know, sometimes you have to really draw a line, and you have to, you know, if you're a coach and you love those types of guys, well, then when you get a guy that's super talented, you have to kind of change things. You don't have to do that for Brian Thomas Jr. But it also leaves room, because of the type of person he is, for you to get another alpha. This is why I keep saying a 2-receiver team. I don't care that they have, because you can do both, right? You can build yourself and be top heavy, or you can build yourself to be top heavy, but still have guys behind that can play really well. I don't want to see all of these dudes touching the ball all the time. I remember at one point last year, the Jaguars got the ball the first time. I don't know if they received it or if they got it after the kickoff, but they had 7 people touch the ball in like the first 10 plays. That's not something I want to see anymore. I want them to lead with their best. I want to know who their best players are, and I want those best players to go out and actually be good. So you can miss me a little bit with the quantity, as long as we get the quality that we need up front. And I think in free agency in the draft, that's exactly what they need to do. I think they need to go out and get difference makers. Guys that right away can come in and help this ball club, and not just be somebody that you sit and wait on a couple of years and try to draft people to show how smart of a drafter you are. And, ooh, we got them. Boy, we really got them. Remember Gene Smith drafting all of those dudes from colleges that you didn't know, thinking like, it gets to the point where you think guys are addicted for people to tell them, ooh, that was good, man. I said that about Aaron Rodgers this year. It's like Aaron Rodgers, every time somebody would blitz, he throw the ball in a hot read, and he'd act like he completed the pass even if he didn't, just because he recognized the hot read. The game ain't about you recognizing the hot read. The game is about you recognizing the hot read and being able to complete the pass. You have to finish it. Nobody cares if you go find someone from some small school who's better than everybody else thought he was going to be, if he is still not good enough to make you win titles or compete for championships. I played a clip yesterday where Howie Roseman, the actual, I think I played it here on Locked On NFL, where Lou DiBiase said that Howie Roseman just changed the way he did things. And what he said was, he said Howie Roseman just decided to get big guys from big schools, productive guys from big time colleges. That's why he kept going back and forth to Georgia. And we also talked about Ozzie Newsome. Ozzie Newsome did that for years with Alabama because of his connections. Just go out and get guys that can come in and contribute right away. By the way, there's some people that want to know, you know, who my sleepers in this draft are. I don't mean now that the Jaguars shouldn't consider moving down from the 5th pick. I just mean, I hope they target somebody. If the Jaguars target, let me just name this. I'm gonna give y'all this right now. If the Jacksonville Jaguars target a guy, but then realize they can go back to 17 and they can get the guy that they targeted at 17, that would be successful. They did it last year. They took a chance. Like I said, they took a chance with Brian Thomas Jr. What if the Jacksonville Jaguars, I put up on a thumbnail, I think it was yesterday, where I gave you a choice, protection over destruction. And I put Mason Graham and Will Campbell. Well, the offensive lineman in this draft that I like more than anybody, and I know for Jaguar fans, it's Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. I can already read it. I can feel it. I got you. Because a lot of y'all wanted that kid out of Duke, Graham Barton, and he went to Tampa and he ended up being very, very good. And he was very good at a position that the Jaguars needed. But if you take him last year, you wouldn't have BTJ. So the guy that everybody likes this year is Gray Zabel. I have a sleeper player that I like. And it doesn't mean they have to take him up top, and they probably won't. but they're going to take a chance that somebody ain't going to see the same thing that I see. There's an offensive lineman out of Ohio State. His name is Donovan Jackson. He played left tackle because Josh Simmons, who's also projected to be a first-round pick, got hurt last year. There are a lot of people that said that when he moved from left guard to left tackle, they already liked him at left guard, but then when he went out and played left tackle, there are a lot of people said, you know what? We like him at tackle. His arms are long enough. He's 6'4", 320 pounds. And for what he did this year when they won a championship and their quarterback wasn't running for his life, he may have a future at left tackle. There have been guys built like him, like Trent Williams is maybe a half inch taller than he is, but he's a big guy just like that. Jason Peters was like that. I like Donovan Jackson. And I like the Jaguars to move back to maybe get around 16 or 17 and then take Donovan Jackson. Here's the thing. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to replace Walker Little. What I'm telling you is the value is there, and if Walker Little doesn't pan out the way you want him to, at the very least, Donovan Jackson can play right guard, left guard, but I really would be drafted him to play tackle. But the thing is I just tell Walker Little, okay, beat him out. It's competition. He's taking somebody's job. Is it going to be yours? Is it going to be Ezra's? Or we just going to make him fill in for? But you'll probably end up addressing some of these positions in free agency first. But the offensive line is bad enough to me that that's exactly what I do. And this is why I say you should be greedy. And this is the point that I was trying to make. Don't just assume that Walker Little, Anton Harrison, and Ezra Cleveland, we're all right. We just need other stuff. No, if you can replace – If they're replaceable, and if you can replace them, or if you can create a situation where there's competition and those guys don't know if they're starters and they got to fight for it, so be it. That's exactly what I was trying to convey. And I'm glad I was able to I wanted to tell y'all so much at the top of the show, and I know somebody's going to kill me for not just saying it and then you say it and then prove it. But my point is I don't want you to miss the point. It's not necessarily about Donovan Jackson. What it's about is before you can even get to that, I hope people open their mind up to not be stuck on drafting just drafting one guy, but then not be stuck on not drafting somebody because you think the guy that you have right now is pretty good. Maybe the only place I do that is edge rush right now, because with edge rush, I need to get all of my best players on the field at one time. And it doesn't do me any good for Josh Allen or Trayvon to either be out of position or to be over on the sideline because whoever I took at number 5 had a better camp than they did, or maybe gives me a little bit of something extra. That would be cool. But the thing is if he's still one of my 3 best defensive players, I want him on the field doing base defense. And that's why I'm hesitant to do that at the edge position. All right, man, we're going to continue to talk about the offseason, anything that we see or hear once we find out who the general manager is. Of course, we'll let you know that here on Locked On Jaguars. Until then, you guys take care. Make sure you tap into Locked On NFL, a double dose of NFL talk with me and Tyler Rowland, him in the morning, me in the afternoon, and twice a day over on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you check it out. All right, y'all take care of each other. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.